Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. So it appears that activists have resorted to some desperate lengths. On Friday afternoon, thousands of crickets were released at the annual LGB Alliance conference, which promotes lesbian, gay and bisexual rights. And it caused the 600 attendees to evacuate the room. Activists are said to have dropped plastic sacks filled with the insects during one of the last talks of the day. The group Trans Kids Deserve Better claimed responsibility for the stunt, saying, "Our crick kids put a stop to their hate, masquerading as an event for social progress, and we couldn't be prouder." OK, well, I'm delighted to say that I have got, from LGB Alliance, Bev Jackson, here to talk to me about it now. Bev, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
So we've had a statement from this group that are claiming responsibility. Obviously, there's an ongoing investigation.
Of course.
But what on earth are they talking about? Hate? What do they mean by this?
Well, they call themselves Trans Kids Deserve Better, and, of course, they've claimed responsibility. We don't know that yet, but that's what they've claimed. They have done actions in the past, really quite dangerous, climbing walls and occupying buildings for weeks. You wonder where the parents are. I do think trans kids do deserve better. They deserve better than to be told lies that that they might have been born in the wrong body. They deserve better than to be told that these hormones and surgeries that they're clamouring for will somehow solve all their problems. Many are on the autism spectrum. Many are struggling with their sexual orientation. We know that. They deserve better than to be told that we hate them.
Yes.
They do, and they deserve better than to be labelled trans when they're going through all the turbulence of adolescence, when your feelings about yourself are in constant flux.
And, of course, as you say, I mean, we know from Hannah Barnes' research that between 80 and 90% of adolescents referred to the Tavistock were same-sex attracted. And the individuals responsible for this, I saw the footage online, they look very, very young.
Very young. Interestingly, both Kate Barker and Kate Harris spoke to these young girls. Kate Barker approached one who looked a bit nervous and said hello and offered her a biscuit.
Yes, Kate is from the LGB Alliance.
Yes, Kate Barker's the CEO of LGB Alliance, and she offered one of these girls a biscuit. And after the incident, Kate Harris, our co-founder, went up to them and said, what is it you want to say to us?
Yes.
And what have you got to say? And they were sort of in a little huddle and quite... You could see they're frightened to talk to us because they have been told that we wish them harm or that we hate them. And she said, look, get in touch, you know, we're happy to set up a meeting. We like dialogue.
So this does sound a little bit like, given the youth of the perpetrators and given the fact that they didn't have much to say to you, I mean, it suggests that there's another hand involved here, doesn't it? That someone else...
Yes, I mean, obviously, I can't say too much about that. We've got several names of adults who are likely to have been the people behind this, and that is all part of the ongoing investigation. But interestingly, when Kate Barker went outside immediately after the incident, she noticed a couple of black-clad, masked figures with a camera that had been set up on a tripod, focused on the entrance, as if it was waiting to capture some incident, which, of course, I mean, there was no evacuation. We moved out of the hall and we moved into a different room to have the next session. And a brilliant session, I have to say. I mean, I'm so proud of LGB Alliance. We were set up, we're almost now at the 5th anniversary, the 19th of October, 2019, when we had our inaugural secret meeting at Conway Hall. This was our 4th conference at the QE2 Centre, and we've just... it was such an important one, partly because there were so many international visitors, and especially hearing from the Americans that LGB Alliance has played a huge role in moving the dial, in getting people to realise that the organisations that used to be gay rights organisations are now homophobic. It's such a difficult message that when you first tell people that, they think you must be mad. But now, with LGB Alliance, we have been able to explain, yes, if you tell kids in their teenage years who may be experiencing their emerging sexual orientation that they might be in the wrong body... I spoke to one young lesbian recently who came from the west coast of the United States, and she said that when she was at high school, the only people who called themselves lesbians were men. the only people who called themselves lesbians were men who were attracted, who called themselves women and who were attracted to women. These are straight men. And so actual lesbians didn't want to call themselves lesbians because of that connotation. It's sort of mixed in with pornography, so they call themselves non-binary or queer instead.
I mean, that's interesting. I saw a tweet that went viral from a very young, a young lesbian, saying that she doesn't really see lesbians who have she, her pronouns anymore, that it's all they, them now. So it's almost as though this movement seems to just erase homosexuality.
Yeah, it's really, really frightening because it has captured so many of our institutions, and I find that just really worrying. And our first session, though, was with a very young, brave young lesbian who does TikTok videos and who is exposing how difficult it is to be growing up as a young lesbian who goes to an LGBT group and finds she's the only lesbian there.
I mean, I want to ask you about this because, you know, obviously you come from a gay activist background, Gay Liberation Front, and Kate, who began LGBT Alliance with you, was from Stonewall, I believe.
That's right, yes. So, she was very active in Stonewall for years.
So you both come from this gay activist front and background. Is it depressing to you that you've had to effectively come back and do it all over again? I mean, I've spoken to a lot of gay people who said it's harder to be gay now than it was in the 80s.
Yes, people don't believe it, but it is absolutely harder because although there was a lot of homophobia when I was growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, you always had places to go where you met other gays and lesbians, and they were fine. And you didn't have people banging on the windows or calling you horrible names from within what you thought was your own community, which was once our own community.
And then, you know, we see this example of you know, this instance of anti-gay activism. It's an attack on a gay conference. I don't think we should call it anything else. And yet you see people like India Willoughby online, celebrities, cheering on anti-gay activism. This is the reality of
I don't think
gay.
I would call India Willoughby a celebrity, but...
OK. Well, I was being polite, I suppose.
But it's true. I mean, they refer to it as a hate event, and the people who refer to it in that way or refer to us as haters obviously know nothing about us. And you notice that, actually, when you meet new people, if they don't know anything and they've been told all these... And then they discover that we're actually quite nice.
Yeah. Funny that, isn't it? But are the police treating this as a hate crime? Because it looks to me like an attack on a group of people, a group of gay people gathering to talk about gay rights. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the idea of hate crime, but if they are going to apply it, doesn't it apply in this case? Well,
I was going to say, I'm not going to talk about the investigation. I don't know what sort of criminal charges might be brought. I don't know what sort of civil action might be brought. Obviously, there's going to be a huge cleaning bill and fumigation.
Yes.
These insects were not only on one floor, but they were taken into the lift, and so that means that the whole building had to be fumigated, and that's obviously an extremely expensive thing. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. But I cannot talk about the investigation of the adults. And I do want to stress, obviously, I feel very ambivalent about these children. On the one hand, I think, you know, these are kids. They've been manipulated. And I have a lot of sympathy for kids who have been manipulated. And these are the children we're trying to save from being medicalised and having their lives ruined. On the other hand, teenagers have to take responsibility for their actions, don't they? And what is wrong with the adults in their lives? What is wrong with their parents who allow them to perch up dangerously in the middle of London for days on end? Why have these parents not learnt the most important part of parenting, which sometimes you have to say no. You have to say no, and you have to teach them how not to let themselves be manipulated. These malign adults who, in the background, are very likely to have been manipulating them and paid for this event. Why are their parents not protecting them? There's something very wrong going on here.
And does it suggest that there is a further problem insofar as some of the most virulent homophobia that I've seen online has come from within trans activist circles, using old-school homophobic slurs, talking about how AIDS was a good thing, all sorts of horrendous things. And then you have this. Crickets, insects unleashed. I mean, the optics of that very much. It's the sort of thing that the neo-Nazis might have done back in the 80s.
Well, I don't think they've read their Old Testament, have they? Because unleashing a plague of locusts, it's not the good guys that do that.
No, exactly.
And it was a foolish action, also quite unpleasant for people who had to see these hapless insects being trampled on and hoovered up.
Yes.
Horrible for the staff, these people, minimum wage staff who had to deal with this. I just think it was just such a poorly conceived and unpleasant action all round, and driven by hate, at least ignorance, and we need to find a way forward in which people are not told these lies anymore. These lies are unmasked. No, these kids they deserve better. They deserve better.
Yes, and as you say, conversation is key. And you would be happy to have a conversation with anyone who has these reservations.
Of course, we've always said so.
But this is such an authoritarian thing to do, to try and prevent other people from talking. I mean, like you say, these aren't the good guys here, and it would be strange that anyone could conceive of them as being so. Finally, just tell us about the conference. What sort of speakers did you have, and what sort of event were you trying to put on there?
Well, as I said, so we started off with this young lesbian who was explaining what it's like to be a young lesbian, how difficult it is now, and very, very courageous young woman. And then we had a panel of gay men talking about their different ages, although the point was made that they, in spite of many efforts, they could not find a 20-something. So they had some 30-somethings and 40-somethings and 50-somethings and 60-somethings, but the 20-somethings did not dare.
They were not represented.
They couldn't. They don't dare. They don't dare. It's too scary out there. And even though we're hearing signs from within the LGBTQ world that, you know, that there are many, many, many more people now who agree with us, but it's not always easy to come forward.
Yes.
And then we had a media panel, which was fantastic, in which Kathleen, for instance, talked about the problems within the BBC and the complete failure of impartiality at the BBC and her valiant efforts to do something about that. And we heard about The Guardian also used to be... I mean, I grew up... For decades, I got all my news from The Guardian and the BBC, and they have now completely abandoned the field of impartiality, so that was really very interesting. We had a fantastic keynote address from James Trafford, so it's really, really inspiring and very passionate,
yes.
and in praise also of us, which was very heartening. And then I did a legal panel with Aqua Reindorf and Michael Foran, these experts, and also Lizzie Pitts, who's been through one of these cases, in which they really explained some very important things which are constantly misunderstood about the Equality Act and the Gender Recognition Act and the way they interact.
And will people be able to see these online at all?
Yes, so those were all recorded, and they will be online. The very, very interesting talk that Kate Harris did, the interview with Jamie Reid, that's going to be redone because we had to do it in the other room.
Yes.
It's fascinating. She's a whistleblower. She worked at a gender clinic and she saw close up how these gender clinics were failing these kids, and now she has blown the whistle on them. And we had a really, really good talks about possible collaboration, and that was a fantastic talk. And I just really enjoyed it, and I just feel so proud of LGB Alliance.
Brilliant. Well, where can people find out more about LGB Alliance?
Well, we have, of course, on our website, lgballiance.org.uk, and our Twitter Twitter account, @AllianceLGB, my own personal Twitter account, Bev Jackson Auth, AUTH. Also, I tend to tweet quite